Hello, parents. Today bring us to the sixth day of this workshop. And I know for those who have been with me from the very first day, I know you're enjoying it because you have messaged me and say how much you're enjoying the workshop and the sessions. Now, for those who are joining with us today for the very first time, this workshop is to help parents and to teach them the basic skills that they would need to know to become their child's teacher. So that is why we have this workshop, so we can meet our children through their parents, right? So I know today's going to be really nice. Yesterday we went through health and we spoke about healthy eating. Today we will talk about safety today. So today we're going to look into the safety of our children. Yesterday we spoke about the health of our children. Now we know about abuse, and we're going to go through some types of abuse. Some type of abuse are physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, mental abuse, financial abuse, cultural abuse. Well, there's a lot of abuse, but today we can't go through all. But I want to touch on the most important one that I think that we as parents should be aware of, and that is physical abuse, sexual abuse, and verbal abuse. So that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, so we know that physical abuse is what you can actually see from the outside, right? The outer appearance of that child, you can actually see that physical mark. So that's why you call it physical abuse, because you can actually see it, right? It's not hide away or hidden inside. What are some examples of physical abuse? Some examples are hitting, slapping, pulling of the hair, biting. I have kicking, and I say hitting, right? Yes, hitting. And you can there's a lot more, but it's just a few I have here. Now, there are signs. How would you know if a child has been physically abused? There are signs. And when you see a child, if a child does something wrong and that child know he or she does something wrong, and you come to that child to even open your mouth to speak, that child will raise a defense like this. And a child will go like this. And when you see a child raise a defense like this, you say you understand directly that that child, force is always been given when situation occurs that a child know that he or she did something wrong. So that's why the child will always raise a defense. So that's a sign too. Now, if we examine the types of physical abuse, you would realize that most of these things is what our children would do to other people's children, right? Our children would, in the school setting, you'll find the children biting and kicking and pulling the friend hair, and all these things you will find right in the school setting. Now, our children can only do what they see, okay? We learned that. We learned that early in our lessons. Our children adapt to the environment they're in, and what they see, that's what they put out. So now, if we see these things happening, our children are always physically, always aggressive, and always want to raise a defense and fight and pull and bite. We need to examine that child's environment to see what is actually going on. What is that child is actually seeing? What is actually happening to that child? Why is that child behaving like that? Now, if we examine some of the types of physical abuse, which I mentioned hitting and biting and slapping and kicking, those are some of the things that our children will do in a school setting. Yes, they will do those things. And then we're wondering why is this child so aggressive? Why this child always biting? Why this child always kicking? Why? That's how we want to know why these things are happening. Now, early in our lesson, we learned that our children do what they see. Whatever environment they're in, that's what they put out. So when you see a child behaving in this manner, you need to examine. And as teachers, as myself, I would examine the situation, because we can't have children among other children who are bullies and who like to fight. Now, these things happen when our children are exposed to it. Most of our children are disciplined by force. and parents would use physically, they would physically use their hands to instill rules and discipline, and all of that will happen with that child. So when a child is exposed to that, that child will do the exact same thing. You ever see a 1+ old child, he or she would come to you and do like, if you do something, they just do, because why the child would always want to hit you on your hands or hit their friends? Why? It's because mommy or daddy or somebody had to be doing it. So what that child would do, that child just adapt to what he sees and adapt to what she sees. So most of us use force to discipline our children, and I cannot sit here and lie to you, because when my two children was younger, I used to do that. But since I got the knowledge, I stopped. I don't do it anymore. So knowledge, most of you parents can relate to what I just said. Sometimes our children will get so upset that we use force, physical force, so that that child would listen to us. Why do you think we did that? Because we adopted the same rules and principle that we had when we were small, and mommy and daddy would do the same thing to us. We grew up knowing of that, and then we applied those same rules to our children. But over the years, as me, I'm using myself as an example, I have learned that it is not right and it's abuse if you hit your children. Because think about this, would you like somebody to hit you? And when somebody do hit you, would that hurt or would that feel nice? It will hurt. So think about that child too. That child will feel the very same way. So that's why after learning these things, we need to make adjustment. We need to change. Physical abuse is real, and most of our children are physically abused at home. Why do you think I say that? When our children comes to us at school, sometimes you will see so much of marks of violence on some children's skin, and teachers and caregivers like myself, we would examine these children. We would realize that Harry is not looking so good today, or Sue is not herself today. When you examine the children, you would see some incident that I had. A child came with an iron mark on the child's hand. Some of them came with the comb brown and print on the hands. And when you ask the child will say to you. When you ask the parent will come up with all sorts of excuse, and that parent will tell you a story. But these children are physically abused by their own parents. Right in our school setting, if we as caregivers or teachers don't use rules and don't look into our children, it have children who would come to school and bite other people's children, fight them, literally fight them, aggressive. When you see these things happening, you look to see where the root cause of it is, where the root cause is coming from, and you realize that it is from the home. That child is going through the same thing. So our children are physically abused at home, and it is not right. As parents, there are so many rules that you can apply instead of using force. I can say to you, I used to use force on my children. But when I got the knowledge, then I stopped using force, because I wouldn't like anybody to use force on me. So I have to care for my child the same way I care for myself. Let's talk about sexual abuse. We talked just now about physical abuse. Let's talk about sexual abuse. We know any sexual activity that a person lacks the capacity to consent to is sexual abuse. I have here also non-consent, sexual penetration, or attempt penetration of the vagina, anus, or mouth is sexual abuse. Now we're going to look at these two here. Right? We're going to look at these two. What are the signs? Now we want to know the signs of sexual abuse. If that child is being sexually abused, that child will have burning and redness around the buttocks, or around the thighs, or around the vagina area. That child will have difficulty in walking or sitting. That child will have infection or discolored with discharge. Right? The discharge will be discolored. Another sign of sexual abuse, that child will be crying a lot, because especially if it's a smaller child, that child will have a lot of discomfort around that area, right? And that child, and an older child would not want to be around people. And when the person who did that to that child would not want to be next to that person. So those are signs. And as parents, we need to open our eyes, and we need to observe. We need to be observant when it comes to our children. We need to examine them. We need to talk with them, especially if you leave your child with persons during the day. If your child is not with you during the day, you need to you need to be observant. You need to be your child's protector, right? And ensure that you look up on these signs. Okay, there are many cases with children 0 to 8 years old, right? These children are victims, these small children. When we have these incident happens in our school, we would quickly raise an alarm to the parents, letting the parents know what is going on, because as caregivers, we need to, when we're taking care of these children, we would see certain things. And then after, when the situation can't be handled, we take it to the child protection agency. It's our right to do so. So our children, when they're with us, we look out for them. Okay, and I know that the older children, when they're at school, they might trust their teacher to go and tell their teacher what is going on with them. Some of them might have a best friend, and they might confide in that friend what is going on with him or her. Now, answer this question for me. What do you think is happening now? There is no school. What do you think is happening now? Who is looking out for these children now? Now it leaves up to the parents. Answer that question for me. When you research and you check to see how many cases it had from since school closed to now, it doubles the amount in that short space of time. Why these things are happening, parents? It means to say your children don't have the other eyes looking out for them. No, you have to have that eyes, that extra eyes looking out for that child, right? And you would find most of these cases coming from extended families, sibling families, adopted families, and nuclear families, and and single parents family. You would find these things, these cases arising from. Let's take a look at some of the cases. Let's examine how these things are happening within this family setting. Right? We're going to examine those things. Why is it happening and how is it happening? It can be a brother troubling his sister, right? It can be a stepfather or a father, right? Sexually abusing his daughter. It can be an uncle or an aunt. It can be a grandfather or a grandmother. It can be your friend or your neighbor, an extended family members. It can be anybody that you taking your child to. Listen to me. We cannot know what somebody is doing from the outwards appearance. No, we can't, right? Because uncle might look so innocent and you don't know that behind your back, uncle is capable in troubling your child, boy or girl. Even to the grandparents, even to the aunts or the uncles, you just don't know, right? You can't 100% trust anybody, because person say, oh, I trust to leave my child here, there, and everywhere. No, you cannot trust people because so parents, find someone that you can who can take care of your child just the way you would take care of your child. And you can't 100% trust anybody. So what you need to do is ensure you start teaching your children early, at an early age, good touch and bad touch, and calling the names of these private parts, vagina and penis and butt and mouth. They need to know these things because you can't 100% trust anybody. So ensure where you have your children during the day, and I advise you that you ensure that you start teaching your child, because that's the solution. The solution is teaching your child early about abuse, sexual abuse, telling them that no one should touch you on your vagina or penis or butt. No one. Only mommy, when mommy ready to bathe you. And you explain these details to your child so that your child would know. I am presently working on a book named Don't touch me there. The reason why I'm working on this book to bring out to you parents for you to purchase it is because I see the need and our solution. We want to know what is the solution. How can we prevent this from happening? Because we can't trust anybody, even to the fathers, even we can't trust anybody, stepfathers. No, the solution is the solution is to ensure that you teach your child these simple basic things so that they now can understand that their good touch and their bad touch, and this is my vagina, or this is my penis, and nobody should touch me there. And by teaching your child that, and as a child meets another age, you try to bring more onto the table. You try to go a little more in depth so that that child will understand. Okay, so teach your child. Now, in our previous class, you learned, and myself, we learned that when you teach your children principles and certain rules early, that child would adapt to it, that child would learn faster rather than you push it all and force all and you take your time and you teach your child as the child grows to different age. No, you do the same thing. So that's why this book is going to be really nice for you parents, for you to start teaching your child. Your child needs to know what is sexual abuse, and your child needs to be aware of it, and you need to let your child know that this is their private part and nobody should touch them there. So you have to work with your child so that your child can know these, have this information and know how to take care of themselves when you are not around. Because again, we cannot trust anybody. And for the children who don't have that understanding as yet, parents, you have to protect that child. Even self, if your child is old in age, you still have to protect your child at all times. And to protect your child is to give them the knowledge, because you will not always be with them. So you need to give them the knowledge so that they can able to protect themselves from these wicked people that we have around us. Now, we will have to continue this teaching because I really want to touch on verbal abuse. I really want to touch on that because I know that's one of the things that we as parents, we do it a lot, and we really don't understand that it does a lot to our children, and we unconsciously do it because we custom to yell and scream and call our children names. So I really want us to go through that. So we're going to have a continuation of this class and this session today. And for the smaller children, like the babies who cannot speak, now we have to protect them. We have to ensure that we have them in a safe environment every day. And not only for the babies, but with all our children at any age, we need to protect them at all times. All right? So let's move. We talk about physical abuse, we talk about sexual abuse, and one more we'll talk about is verbal abuse, emotional abuse. Right? I have a video about emotional abuse and about words. It is about the words that we say. Words can hurt, right? It is words can hurt. I will send you that video so that you can look on it because there are questions that I will have there in this lesson that relates to that video. So I will send you the link for you to take a look at it, and you would see how words are important and how it can hurt people's feelings, right? So words do hurt. What is verbal abuse? I have here as a definition. Verbal abuse is the use of words which insults and criticize someone. It is a bad form of communication, and it's intent to harm and to hurt that person's feelings, right? We have some types of verbal abuse can be yelling and cursing, yes, squealing, right? Manipulation, right? Those are some examples. And what is the effects of verbal abuse? It can cause pain to that person. That person can be depressed. All right, that person can have anger inside of them just because of the words that you speak to that person. So we have to ensure and be careful about the words that comes out of our mouth. It can be good words and it can be bad words. So we have to choose what is right. Words can hurt, and we should not hurt people's feelings by using the words that comes out of our mouth. Okay, we should know what we say to our children affects our children. Positive words will bring positive results. Negative words consistently every day you will get negative results from your children. So think before you say something, and ensure that you don't get so angry and boil up that you say things that you would regret saying, because most of the time that happens. So examine yourself, try to calm yourself down, because when you speak these words and linger in the atmosphere, the words tend to build and to mold into that child's mind, and that child will grow up always thinking that mommy say X, Y, and Z, or daddy said this to me, and that child will grow up with that in his heart or her heart. So be careful on what words you say to your children. It can affect them for life. This brings us to the end of today's lesson. So today we talk about abuse, and we talk about three types of abuse, which is physical abuse, sexual abuse, and verbal abuse. So questions will be sent to you, and parents, you're asked to answer the questions according to the video, and according to the video about how words are important and how words can hurt you. So that video was sent to you so you can use it and answer your questions. Thank you very much, and you can share this video so other parents can benefit from it as well. Do subscribe to our channel, give us a like, and leave your comment before you go. Thank you.